Hello and welcome to Women on Top with Holly Madasser, where the conversations focus on women, wealth, and social change. Holly and her guests, who represent many different fields, engage in transparent conversations that reflect professional and personal struggles as well as accomplishment. Some are making strides to address societal problems. Others have chipped away at the proverbial glass ceiling. All are supporting the financial future and well-being of women. Through these conversations, we learn about embracing a purpose and lifting others up while ensuring our own future success. Now, here's your host, Holly Madasser.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Women on Top with Holly Madasser, where we celebrate amazing women doing amazing things every day. Today, we're fortunate to have Mahsa Hakimi on the show. Mahsa is an Iranian American woman. She's an attorney, and she's also an activist. Also, she happens to be the art commissioner for the city of San Francisco and recently conceived of and put together an art exhibition in support of the Iranian women in Iran and the movement that they're having. Welcome to the show, Mahsa.
Thanks for having me here, Holly.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you were born in Iran. I believe you moved here in 1987 when you were 15 years old. What was that like for you?
That's a great question to ask. So, I moved here I was about 15 years old, and it was right after the Iranian Revolution, and obviously after the hostage situation in Iran, which was very fresh in the American public's mind. And of course, after the war between Iran and Iraq, which was very much a part of the news of the American government, American society at the time. So I moved here. I moved to Orange County, a very conservative, upper class community, and there weren't that many people like me. And at the time, there was a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation. And, it was very normal growing up as an Iranian teenager. And this is very common now that I talk to many of my friends who came at that time. We got harassed and bullied, but you just took it. You just took it because there was no way to kind of explain the complexity of what was happening. It was a complex situation. So as a 15-year-old,
I don't think the media
just want to blend in, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You want to assimilate and you want to fit in. And I don't think the media helped a lot, right? The images, I mean, I immigrated here in 1969 with my family and I was 7. So during the hostage crisis, I was a teenager in the South, and it wasn't easy. And the portrayal on the media of Iran, the culture, the people, was only political, and at a time when there was huge conflict between our two countries. So it was hard.
And it was like you had to prove yourself over and over that your alliances where it stands. And being Iranian with this very rich culture and heritage, and a government that was ravaging the society in a way that was not really what most of Iranians wanted, not that. But you couldn't explain that. How could you explain that? Because the media was much more powerful than a 15-year-old. And as I said, you just want to be a teenager. So you didn't, So yeah, it was not easy. And, for the next 44 years, I found myself continuously to have to either defend or go silent or not, just kind of try to make it okay.
Yeah. And so you went to law school, right?
I did.
And like me, I'm sure, you go about your life, you spend a long time assimilating, but inside it's still there, this sort of huge misunderstanding about your people and the situation that they're in, right? Yeah. So how did you make a leap from fitting in, being in the United States, you're in the new world, you're an attorney, the world is your oyster, and yet somehow you cross this barrier and decide, I'm going to be an activist. Wow. Yeah. How do you do that?
So the little piece that I need to add, in the 90s, I came out. So I'm queer, and I came out right after the AIDS epidemic in the 90s in San Francisco. And by virtue of my existence ever since then, I'm a woman, I'm Iranian, first generation immigrant, and I'm gay. Every day of my life, one of these characters, if not all of them, are a challenge every day. So I would love to tell you that I made a decision because, this is what I want to do. But the reality was I didn't have a choice. And then by the time I became an attorney, I had the tools and ability to stand up and have conversations and challenge the status quo and understanding of people. And by living and leading the way I do, just to, every day, I it's how should I say, it's like, it's not a choice. It's like, it's a must. I'm just an activist by being who I am.
So I understand you didn't have a choice in the 90s, coming out at a time when post-AIDS, there was a lot of paranoia, a lot of blaming, it was all your fault, so on and so forth. You probably did have a choice or do have a choice about just turning a blind eye to what's going on in Iran. I would like to say that most Iranian immigrants in the diaspora have turned a blind eye, but they haven't, in my experience. Everyone is deeply affected by what's happened. So talk to us a little about what your journey was. You came out, you kind of participated in that movement in the 90s, and then you got a regular job. I think you were an attorney at an investment fund, and you went about doing your thing, and then something inside of you said, you know what, I'm not done with this.
So I've always been an art lover, I should call it. I don't have the talent myself, but I have the utmost appreciation and love for the artist, because I think arts, visual arts in particular, are a human language that unites without any barriers, really. So there's intersectionality that we all are, our emotions get aroused. So art has always been very much a powerful tool, both for me politically, personally, obviously being Iranian, art is very much part of our culture. I think maybe that's part of the reason I have always been a fan, but I grew up with it. But so to this question of, so let me back and forth. So we are, kind of bring this all together. I spent most of my life, as I was saying to you, just sort of in conflict with this identity of being an Iranian woman in America because of all the background and the misinformation, really. And then there's being gay, which again, misinformation. Like, this media has always not been on our side, kind of thing. Like, that's kind of for my identity. And something happened in September of 2022. Like, I think most of us Iranians have always been very much involved in our communities, but it's been very isolated. It's outside of this identity of being an Iranian American. That did not really mesh together for the longest time, especially as an Iranian woman, because there's this complete misunderstanding about who we are. We knew how powerful we are, but we could never express that. And we always had to step back because it was too complicated to explain.
And almost hide from it, right?
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
I feel like for me personally, in order to be successful, this was not what you lead with.
No.
Being from Iran is not like being from Paris, right? It doesn't have the same cachet. And so it was something that you kind of learned to push under the carpet and lead with maybe your accomplishments, your achievements, your pedigree, not with that. And this movement in September was honestly the outpouring of love and support for this poor woman who, we all know what happened to her. It was the first time in my experience being in the United States where I was actually proud to be an Iranian woman, or a woman of Iranian descent. I don't know if you felt that way, but
I want to tell you, it just shifted. Something extraordinary happened. Suddenly the world could see what we had seen all of our life, but we couldn't share. It's like this idea of being an Iranian woman is not, we're actually, they're fighting. They're fighting in civil disobedience in ways that are in textbooks. Like here are Iranian women who've been portrayed as these, submissive, abused women who have no voice. And suddenly here comes September and this extraordinary movement by the young Iranian women. And what was unique about it was a civil disobedience movement. So a human rights, they're demanding for a democratic nation building. They're not just saying we don't want to take our scar. They want a whole change.
They want radical.
They're willing to die for it. They're really
ready to die for it, which is very rare in history. I don't know how many times in history a movement has been led where women were willing to go to the front lines and risk their lives.
I would tell you that there are probably many civil rights movements that women were in the front lines, but it just doesn't portray as that. This one, you couldn't avoid it. The slogan is women, life, freedom. Like, this is the first time that women are at the forefront. It's a catalyst for this, what I consider a feminist revolution, a feminine revolution, not a feminist, very different than a feminist revolution. And then there was this intersectionality of this message that resonated not just in Iranians or Middle Easterns or immigrants. It was this universal language that these women are demanding self-determination. They're demanding, autonomy over their body. And they're demanding that there be a stop to what we consider now gender apartheid and gender segregation, a conversation that any woman anywhere in the world you can have with, and it resonates with them. So when you ask me, so what happened over here? So when I started seeing that and being part of the gay movement in the 90s, and then being part of the, the women movement throughout, and being a civil rights activist and, social rights activist, to me, immediately, I came to this thing. We all have our strengths. We all have our powers. We all have our resources. And to me, art was my thing. And I knew that I can tap into that, because I knew that while we're doing all the media stuff, we're doing all the, taking on the streets and taking protests, what will actually bring people together to see the intersectionality is the visual arts. So in October, I started reaching out to people that I knew that I thought would be great allies and partners that could see this vision and opportunity. But, it required immediate action, because you only have a very short amount of time to be relevant in the news. And this was extraordinary moment in time. Yeah. And we had to jump on it. There was it was like urgency, so I reached out to a good friend of mine, Neda Nobari, who is a philanthropist, but also a leader in a community with the art community, especially Iranian artists. And it happened that her organization, Mosaic Philanthropy, had actually put a call for global call of action to the artists to present works that were around the slogan "Women, Life, Freedom." And they had about 500 plus art that had submitted globally from Iran all the way to San Francisco. It wasn't and they do a blind submission, so we didn't know who's coming. So.
What that, just for our audience, what that means is you look at all the submissions, but you have no idea who did them, what gender, what country, nothing.
Exactly, right? Exactly. So our list art comes out. And so I came to Neda introduced me to Shiva Balaghi, who had done curation for major art exhibits. And so extremely powerful in her virtue and her talent. And so the three of us came together, of course, with Neda's organization. And we decided that, we had ideas about what would be the most powerful form of art to be able to get the majority or get the maximum amount or have the most impact. Well, I personally suggested the idea of a projection on walls, on monumental walls. We looked at posters, but this was the most powerful because it didn't require, it would break the institutional barriers. You don't have to go and get permission.
Yeah, you don't have to go inside, right? You just walk by and there it is.
Exactly. And it would be the most publicly viewed. But more important, we wanted to do it inside out, because these art institutions have been very limited with artists who are from other countries, especially Middle Eastern artists. They get censored all the time in these institutions. So we wanted to do something that was inside out. And
so you kind of bypassed the censorship, the barriers, and went direct to the artists And I assume that they all submitted digitally, right?
They
so
did.
As long
it was
as
digital,
they had access,
because we went to projection. It was a digital, so the digital. Yeah, that was the best way. Yeah.
Yeah. So as long as they had access anywhere in the world to a social media outlet, they could submit an artwork.
Yes.
So you literally bypassed all of the barriers to entry.
And it was equitable. It was equitable. Any artist could submit. You didn't have limitation because it's digital. So so then we sat down, we chose 30 because we want to be, represent different representation of Iranian, because the Iranian community also, it's very diverse. We want to make sure it's very diverse in its representation. And then happened that the Asian Art Museum, of course, being the commissioner, helped because, the city staff at the commission were helpful to cut through the barriers for me. So literally we met in October. We have no idea what we're going to do. Comes January, we're going up. I've been told that this was an extra time-wise to do a project like this. It's almost impossible to do less than 6 months because of the permits and
to pull it together. And like you say, it was so timely. It was really urgent to do it when you did it.
But I want to tell you how what was incredible was the sisterhood and the allyship. For me, it was very important that this message goes outside of Iran. Look, the Iranians know what they want. The Iran diaspora knows what they need to do, but the message needed to be outside of our communities. And I have to tell you, this could have not happened if it wasn't all these non-Iranian women who just stepped in whatever capacity and helped us through. So this Women Life Freedom really resonated on a personal level in which people wanted this message told. So we did an extraordinary time with amazing allyship. And
I think one of the common threads and why it galvanized so many women around the world is, while it may seem more extreme in Iran, women all over the world are fighting every day for the right to control their bodies, the way they dress, the things that they say, the roles that they serve in society, right? Equal pay, access to the boardroom, access to venture capital. I mean, it ranges the gamut. We still have not had a female president in this country. And so it resonated on a deep level with many women and all the men that love them, the men that have daughters and wives, right? And so it wasn't just there wasn't gender apartheid when it came to support in my estimation.
No,
right?
I 100% agree with you. The what we talk about gender is the laws that have been written long time ago. And what was extraordinary about this. So look, I'm an activist. I will tell you personally that as an activist, you cannot move anything or the needle unless you have the right allyship. Allies are important. And what was extraordinary about this particular movement, in my experience, when the gay movement happened, the straight people were the ones who supported, because otherwise it could have not happened. When you deal with Me Too, men had to step in. When we deal with Black Lives Matter, the white community has, we need to understand that these are bigger than just those small communities. The extraordinary thing about Women Life Freedom movement in Iran, it's while the girls have been up front, it's been also the men who stand with them. And I'm not just saying behind them, they're standing next to them. And they're dying for it. So, I think this was an extraordinary life experience for me personally. It was absolute honor to, and what happened is during that so it was 3 nights in San Francisco at the City Hall, Civic Center. That's where the museum is. And across from the museum is the City Hall of San Francisco. They turned the flag, because they turned the colors of the City Hall at nighttime. They turned it into the Iranian flag for 3 nights. So that entire experience. And that's what I mean by it. And that was the idea. We wanted it to be outside of just the Iranian community. And for me personally, it just what we just started talking about. I came to this country and who I was a taboo. Who I was not acceptable. Who I was a threat. Who I was unwelcome in many ways. And yet I love this country, and I get to be who I am because of the opportunities.
You get to be who you are, and you get to put forward an exhibit to promote the causes that you care about.
Exactly. And the support, and to see that that's the real America that I am proud of, is that thing that when to be on the right side of history, and they continuously this. So for me, it was very personal, and I don't know. I just, here we are. It was
So Mahsa, I've heard you talk before, and you and I have talked about how art is a unique medium. It's a universal language and a way to galvanize people. There are many ways to be an activist, right? You could raise money, you could march on the streets, you could, do lots of things. You could write, but you particularly have chosen art as a way to galvanize people. Is art something that you feel has been a part of all successful social movements?
Yeah, I give you an example. So as I coming back to it, I came in the 90s. So it was, AIDS had happened, had devastated the gay community, especially in cities like San Francisco. And they were struggling. It was really a struggle to get the message for people to understand that this is a human issue. It's not just this, And then ACT UP came about. And ACT UP entire project was about visual and performance. And then the second thing that they did was the AIDS memorial project that they did in Washington, D.C. And I remember being 21, and all these women actually were showing up and doing these quilts, and they're big, and then they took it to Washington, D.C. And just visually, as you walk by and you see the language, there's something human about that this is not some sick person out in the world. It's somebody's son, somebody's dad, somebody's mother, neighbor, your dog, humanize it. So that was a moment to me that I knew that the only way you can do this is art. The only way you can take a social message and get people to feel the experience is through art. Whether it's music, whether it's performance, whether it's a movie, whether, these murals, whatever, or these. So to me, my activism is very much intertwined with my love for art. And
it's a whole other language. It's a visual language, and it's universal. Everyone understands a painting, right? It doesn't matter where you're from. And so speaking of which, I know that you had 500 submissions and they were blind. 30 of them were selected for the exhibit. And ironically, it turns out that many of these came directly from Iranian women.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. It turns out, I think, I noticed it, but it was I think 60% were from Iran, and more than 60% were actually women artists. So it just happened. And I think that because probably as you look through these, the personal experiences probably came through for us, without knowing, But
I think that's incredible. Amazing, and speaks to the power of the experience, right? I mean, it really shouldn't be a surprise that the people living it, who, are young people who were not even born in 1979, they're the ones who are living it, and ironically, they're the ones that made the most powerful art, right? That shouldn't be a surprise.
It's a living experience for them.
Yeah, exactly. So for our audience, I know some of you are on YouTube and you'll be able to enjoy the clip that we're about to show. But for those of you who are just listening, I know, Mahsa, you guys made the decision to set this video to the music, the song Baraye, which really has come to symbolize the movement, woman, life, freedom, right? And so talk to us about that decision.
So great question. So I actually, our actual clip, which got projected to the wall, has no music. We made a very conscious choice, a 7-minute clip. It keeps repeating. It was from 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, 3 nights, in January. And by the way, our project's called Art Rise Collective, which, a few of us work together to do this. We actually chose not to have any sound because we wanted people to experience the art.
Yeah.
Because music distracts in a way and brings emotions that are different than you watching it. And people told us that was very powerful for them to actually stand, and then they end up staying over the few times to see the rotation because they kept missing things that they had not seen. Then there's the social media representative, because that's a different experience. And we made a decision that when we made the clip as an archive of the war, we decided that Shervin was obviously the choice. There was no question about it, because his song, and it's funny, my non-Iranian friends cry when they hear this song.
Yeah, it's
just
been
brings
translated all over the world, and it's just become, I mean, he became a rock star overnight.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He got an award by our first lady at the Grammys, I think.
At the Grammys,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, he got. And I share a little anecdote. I was at the White House. I was invited to the White House last month. And it was really amazing, because before the president and first lady came out, they actually played Shervin's song. And it was kind of this just, I don't know how to explain the emotion of standing in the White House and then having Shervin's song playing for celebration of our Nowruz. It was, this was, and the funny part about Shervin, so I want to point this out, he didn't write the lyrics, by the way. I don't know if they know the story. He actually collected all the tweets that people had written about why they're doing it. So Barra means why and for what. And so he collected those and put them into a song, which that itself is an incredible process.
it really is. It's similar to what you did with the artwork, except in music, right?
Yeah, exactly. So then so YouTube has the music on.
Yeah. And I'm getting ready to show that to everyone. I can't think of a better way to pay tribute to you for what you've done than to end with this video clip. Thank you so much for sharing
having
your time and your talents with us. Let's see if I can get this to work.
برای توی کوچه رقصیدن، برای ترسیدن به وقت بوسیدن، برای خواهرم، خواهرت، خواهرامون، برای تغییر مغزها که پوسیدن، برای شرمندگی، برای بیپولی، برای حسرت یک زندگی معمولی، برای کودک زباله‌گرد و آرزوهاش، برای این اقتصاد دستوری، برای این هوای آلوده، برای ولیعصر و درختای فرسوده، برای پیروز و احتمال انقراضش، برای سگهای بیگناه ممنوعه، برای گریه های بیوقفه، برای تصویر تکرار این لحظه، برای چهره ای که میخنده، برای دانش آموزا، برای آینده، برای این بهشت اجباری، برای نخبه های زندانی، برای کودکان افغانی، برای این همه برای غیر تکراری، برای این همه شعارهای تو خالی، برای آوار خونه های پوشالی، برای احساس آرامش، برای خورشید پس از شبای طولانی، برای قرصای اعصاب و بیخوابی، برای مرد میهن آبادی، برای دختری که آرزو داشت پسر بود، برای زن زندگی آزادی، برای آزادی، برای آزادی، برای آزادی.
Beautiful, truly beautiful. Thank you so much, Mahsa.
Thank you. It was an honor. I look forward to seeing the rest of your work that you do. I'm a big fan, so thank you.
And I look forward to talking again soon. Take care.
Have a great day. Bye.
Holly Madasser, CPA, is a partner and senior wealth management advisor at Stearns Financial Group, an investment management firm with offices in Chapel Hill and Greensboro, North Carolina. Securities are offered through Hightower Securities, LLC, member FINRA, SIPC. Hightower Advisors, LLC is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Refer to brokercheck.finra.org for more information. This podcast is copyrighted and all rights are reserved. The content of this podcast is for information only and not intended to serve as financial, legal, medical, or any other form of professional advice.